The start. So, I've been with my wife for 12 years. We have a 6-year-old daughter, and I would say overall, we've had a strong marriage. Last night we had a small party at the house. 3 other couples came over, one of which included my wife's best friend. Needless to say, drinks were flowing. And we were playing an adult board game. My wife's best friend's husband wasn't playing, and he seemed to be drinking more heavily than the rest of us. My wife was drinking pretty heavily too. Throughout the night, my wife and her friend's husband would leave the room together, often to check on our kids, who were playing in my daughter's room. My wife's best friend would comment about it in a playful manner, and I didn't think much of it. My wife has never given me a reason not to trust her. Well, I guess that was naive of me, for I eventually walked by my hallway bathroom, in which the door was closed, and realized I hadn't seen my wife and this guy in a while. I knocked on the bathroom door, and the guy said he was in there. I double-checked to see if I could find my wife anywhere but couldn't. Eventually, I opened the door, which was left unlocked, and there was my wife and this guy making out. She was about to give him a good time. I broke it up, told all our guests to leave, and my wife passed out after I yelled at her for a few minutes. So now I obviously have this image in my head of my wife with another guy. I have no doubt that if I had walked in there 5 to 10 minutes later, I would have seen the worst scene in my life. I am utterly distraught now. I can't sleep, eat, or do anything. My wife has spent the day apologizing profusely to me, blaming the alcohol, and begging me not to go the divorce route. I don't want to divorce my wife, and I know this is just a day old, but I don't know how I could be with someone who did this to me, in our home, while I'm here. Not only is the cheating part wrong, but I feel so disrespected and so embarrassed by this. My wife promises that she is happy with me, and I did nothing to drive her towards cheating. She blames the event completely on alcohol, while alcohol is no excuse. I have to admit it was a factor. My wife has promised never to drink again. So, based on this, what would you all do? Try to work it out or consider divorce? Like I said, I don't want to divorce her. But how can I stay with someone who does that to me and has no respect for what we've built together over the last 12 years? If I stay with her, I have to get the image of her and this guy out of my head. How do I do that? The wife of the guy, she is distraught as well. She and her kids are staying at a friend's house now. Her and I have been texting each other throughout the day. My wife had only gone to their house without me once, and that was 2 weeks ago when I was away for work, according to the OM's wife. There was flirting going on, but there was also a lot of alcohol drunk that night as well. The OM actually called my wife this morning to apologize while I was gone. I did check my wife's phone and noticed the phone number had not been set up as one of her contacts, and the conversation lasted less than a minute. So, my gut was there was some playful flirting between them, and I think this was the first time it got physical. I know alcohol was a factor, because of how stupidly planned it was. The kids were playing in the room next door, and the bathroom wasn't even locked. I knocked on the door and the OM answered. Then it was probably another 10 seconds before I walked in. If they had their wits about them, I would think they would have stopped, especially with the door unlocked, but they were just going at it when I walked in. We're a military family, living in a military community. We've actually been here about 1.5 years. And my wife was friends with the OM's wife for about a year. Our daughters were in kindergarten together. I say they're best friends, but I mean it contextually with how long we've been here. The OM and I were mere acquaintances. The wives mostly hung out at the playground with the kids. Only within the last couple of months did we start hanging out at each other's houses. Only one time did my wife go there without me. I was away for work, but the OM's wife was there. Also, my wife and the OM's wife are stay-at-home moms, and both the other man and I are at work on base every day. I really don't see time where my wife could have hung out exclusively with the other man on any type of regular basis to develop a relationship. I know I sound like I'm in denial about that possibility, but those are really the facts. My wife swear this was a one-time thing and told me to check everything of hers, phone, FB, etc. I understand things could have been cleaned and I should have checked last night after she passed out, but I was in such shock. But even if she has cleaned everything out, if she and the other man had a relationship before, I imagine they will covertly continue to try, and I'll keep a sharp eye out for it. As will the other man's wife after I speak with her about it. His wife stayed at a friend's last night, then came home this morning to get some things before leaving again. I spoke with the other man's wife, and she said he was crying and begging her not to leave. Also, he used his wife's phone to call me and apologize. He called my wife about a half hour later. I assume after his wife took her suitcase and left. Also, I want to note the other man called my wife while I was gone for a moment. My wife told me about it as soon as I got home. I immediately checked her phone and noted that the number was not set up on her contact list, and I hadn't seen any history in her phone with the number for texts or calls. I know she could have deleted those. I guess I'm really just hoping this was a one-time drunk and stupid event. My wife gets very crazy and horny when she's drunk. I've been the recipient of many good times on those occasions. All the more reason I suppose that I shouldn't have let her walk off alone with this guy. But isn't it possible they just got overcome by the moment? I'm still infuriated with her nonetheless, but it's better in my mind to know this was potentially a case of drunken idiocy than a relationship that had been building up behind my back. He had used his wife's phone to call me earlier. It is possible he got the number from there. My wife's number and my number are off by just one digit, so not too hard to memorize. His wife had my number because we exchanged numbers last night, so we can help each other cope with this. I didn't X the crap out of the guy, trust me I wanted to, but in military housing, when the military police get involved, they take you in no matter what. I couldn't leave my 6-year-old home alone with my drunk, passed out wife, especially after what I saw. I had to take my daughter into account with that. Was the other man's wife notified? Yes, she was there, although didn't see it. I told her everything, and her and I have been coping together through texts. We've also been dissecting the relationship between my wife and the other man to figure out if there was anything ever noticeable that would indicate an E or PA before this event. Right now, we haven't found anything. I've scoured my wife's cell phone, email, FB account and computer, and haven't found any contact with this guy. I will continue searching this. When I say go to work, I mean going to my office, which is literally 5 minutes down the road. Yes. I haven't deployed since 2 years ago, and we didn't live here then, nor know the other man or his wife. As far as reporting this to the other man's chain of command, I would love to see him rot and his military career suffer. But you have to understand that if I do that, his wife and kids will suffer the consequences of lower pay, etc. If she ultimately decides to leave him, I may still do it, but if she wants to reconcile, I'm not going to do something that impacts her family's income. I've never been suspicious while deployed. Also, I've never been deployed while assigned here. I've deployed 4 times while married to my wife. Twice was early in our relationship. Although my daughter wasn't born yet, I did have custody of 2 children from a previous marriage, and my wife cared for both of them. She had a full-time job doing that. Plus, we kept in contact regularly. The 3rd time I deployed was for a year, and she moved in with her family while I was gone. She had my daughter to take care of, who was 1 to 2 years at the time, and we communicated regularly. Again, she had my daughter to care for, and we Skype almost daily. Never did anything suspicious come up. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything, and I can understand something might have been going on with her and the OM before this incident, but I truly had no reason not to trust my wife before this. She's been a fantastic wife and mother, and there were no signs of any infidelity in the past. We're a single-income family, and I have tabs on our finances. There's never been any withdrawals or side bills, like secret cell phone. That would make me suspicious of anything. I am seeing a counselor tomorrow to get his thoughts on this and see if reconciliation is a possibility. I do appreciate everyone's honest, candid, and sometimes difficult to read feedback. While I agree with everyone that alcohol is not an excuse for this, it was a factor. I recognize that I need to figure out how alcohol would allow her to do this and take it as far as she did and as far as she was on her way to going. But the circumstances behind how it happened, and the complete, utter lack of judgment, like in an unlocked bathroom next to my daughter's room, leads me to believe this was more alcohol-related than the result of a relationship between the 2 of them. Nonetheless, because of your inputs, both the other man's wife and I will continue to monitor and see if anything was going on before and will go on after this incident. After my wife told me the OM called her to apologize, I told her that's the last call she will take from him. Next time she better just hang up and tell me about it. When I opened the door, my wife was so out of it, she didn't even say anything. In a zombie mode, she just pulled her pants back up and went straight to our bedroom. She passed out shortly thereafter. The OM was out of it too, mumbling a bunch of crap to me before I kicked him out of the house. I can't recall how long they had been gone from the room we were all hanging out in. Throughout the night they disappeared, a couple of times. I did see them in the kids' room checking on them, which further secured my trust in her. The last time, I don't think they were gone from the room so long that they could have done the dirty deed. I think they were just getting the deed started, kissing first, and clothes starting to come off. My wife was actually on her period, so she would have had to pull the string first. I looked around for any sign of that and didn't see anything. The OM's wife and I are trying to make this determination together, and neither of us could see any opportunity when they could have done anything in the past. Agreed, alcohol is no excuse for this. I've been drunk as a skunk before as well and never had a thought to cheat on my wife. Although, I may have flirted once or twice to where it made my wife upset in the past, so I do understand how alcohol makes one bolder. But never to the point of where I saw her take it. So, I learned from my wife that earlier in the evening, the OM confessed to her that he had cheated on his wife twice before. I'm thinking since they were both drunk during this conversation, my wife would have confessed any prior cheats, if any, to the OM. Do you think it would be worth the time to call the OM and ask if my wife confessed to him that she ever cheated on me, or would I be wasting my time? My wife and I take turns when it come to drinking. I was not impaired, nor were probably half the adults there. And no one was as bad off as my wife and the OM. The game we were playing is called The Game of Things, adult-oriented, but I'm sure many of us have played it. Also, she showed no remorse after I walked in. In fact, she showed no emotion. She was so drunk, she pulled her pants back up in a zombified manner and went straight to our bedroom, where she passed out shortly thereafter. The following morning, and all day yesterday, she has shown remorse. And it's continuing today. She's been such a great mother. Her judgment around her has always been very sound. That's why the fact she took this event into an unlocked bathroom next to my daughter's room leads me to believe alcohol was a big factor. But I still don't think alcohol is an excuse, and I told her this. No alcohol should make a person act like that to someone they love and cherish. So, I just came back from a lengthy discussion with the other man's wife. Her husband is staying at a hotel now, so I brought my daughter there to play with her kids, and we discussed the situation. I told her I've been posting on this site, and some of the input you've all provided, in terms of whether this was a one-time, drunken stupor or a behind-the-scenes relationship. Both the OMW and I agree that there were no signs the other man or my wife had any personal interest in each other. My wife never spoke about him. And the OMW states the other man never spoke about my wife. Also, neither of us could see when there would have been any time for them to spend time alone together. Both my wife and the OMW are stay-at-home moms. Both the other man and I spend lengthy days on base with very visible jobs. I speak to my wife regularly throughout the day and come home for lunch 3 to 5 days a week, so I'm very confident she's not sneaking off during my workday to meet with the other man. OMW has the same sentiment about her husband. Additionally, my wife is home every day I get home from work, and the other man goes straight home after work every day. As for the party 2 weeks ago that I wasn't at, the OMW pointed out to me that there were 2 other girls there as well. So, my wife, the other man, the OMW, and 2 female friends hanging out. My wife was drunk and was flirting with everyone, definitely more so the girls. Yes, my wife is like that and has been with women in the past, and the OMW does not recall a moment when her husband and my wife were alone. The OMW says the flirting was more so to get the other man to have a shot. No touching, and there was no time when the other man and my wife sneaked off together. Lastly, I asked the OMW to tell me about how my wife behaves when they do girls' night out. The OMW has been with her every time. The OMW states my wife has never done anything morally wrong, just flirts with the other girls she is out with. Based on this, my gut really tells me this was an event where the 2 drunkest people at my house were bored with the board game we were playing and started hanging out because they shared the same drunken disposition. They got very stupid, flirty, and things obviously went way too far. Absolutely no excuse for it. And it's a total disrespect for me and the OMW. But I have no evidence at all that my wife was developing a relationship with another man, or that her normal behavior is to act like a were when I'm not around. I will continue to investigate to ensure there's no follow-on contact with the other man. But I don't think there will be. According to the OMW, the other man sounds just as remorseful as my wife. My peach is obviously rotten. Look, I know it seems like I'm defending her character, but I'm being truthful about her past behaviors and her behavior since the event. I'm furious with her, and still don't know if I can reconcile with her. But I just did not see this coming. Yes, she parties hard, but I think in 12 years, I would have at least had a suspicion if she's doing stuff behind my back when we're at a party. Why haven't I kicked my wife out of the house? Well, because she has nowhere to go here. Her family lives 4 states away, and she really has no other close friends here. Plus, I don't feel like throwing money at a hotel for who knows how long. Tomorrow I start seeing a counselor and a lawyer for consultation to see what my options are. I did read online that adultery, which I'm not sure this technically is since I can't prove penetration, is not grounds for me to keep my daughter. So I don't want to get into that legal battle. Plus, I have 2 older kids from a previous marriage that I lost custody of in court for no apparent reason except that I'm not a woman. So I don't have trust in the court system. As for the party 2 weeks ago, the behavior my wife exhibited was normal, based on how she acts with booze. And I knew it was going on. I was away for work, but my wife told me that afternoon she was going to it. As for how she acted there based on what the ONW told me, I wouldn't have had a concern, hindsight being what it is. I know now I should have set a boundary on her. And one now exists in that she will never drink again. Except only with me. Now it's our job to enforce that. The fact my wife wanted to hang around this guy and get flirty and promiscuous with him, especially with me in the house, infuriates me. And frankly goes right at my ego. I'm sure any man would understand. As for the alcohol, I think it was a factor that got her to the line of cheating, but it is not an excuse to cross that line after 12 years of commitment. I've been white-faced drunk too and couldn't imagine crossing that line. As for the after actions you speak of, I'm doing all that, except keeping makeup from her. Although she hasn't worn any and it wouldn't stick on anyway with all her tears. Nonetheless, she has been keeping busy with chores each day, hoping I will engage in conversation with her. I haven't helped at all. But really not because I'm punishing her. I just don't want anything to do with her right now, and when I do engage in conversation, it's to remind her how much she devastated me. Our daughters were in kindergarten together and the wives became friends. The other man and I were merely acquaintances who hung out only when the wives arranged something. The OMW and I are working together to ensure this was indeed a one-off and not a relationship that was developing. But I agree we have to completely cut off ties with them. The unfortunate part is our daughters are best friends and adore each other. The other man and my wife really screwed it up for them. So, I spoke with a lawyer today. I haven't made a decision on D or R yet but wanted to ask some questions. It appears that in the state I live in, I would basically get screwed, although my wife cheated, because I can't prove there was penetration. There is virtually no legal penalties on her part. Off the bat, I would lose custody of my daughter. This didn't surprise me based on some online research I did. Adultery is typically not a factor in how a person parent. My wife is a great mother, and my daughter prospers under her. In addition, me being in the military and prone to deployments plays heavily against me, so I lose my daughter. Because my wife has been a SOM our whole marriage, she really doesn't have the skills to get a well-paying job. So my wife and daughter would go back to her family, which is a plane's ride away. Therefore, seeing my little girl becomes that much more difficult. That also obviously leads to child support, which I don't mind paying. But it's still a factor. The part that gets me, however, is that my wife would still most likely get spousal support, an entitlement to a percentage of my military retirement pension. I think at least 50% of that since we've been married over 10 years. Again, this is because I can't prove penetration. And what I witnessed does not fit the legal definition of adultery. So, there you have it, my wife gets to screw around and I get punished for it. I have a couple of more legal appointments to get second and third opinions on this. But I think I'll get the same info. Even with this kind of news, I'm not going to stay with her just to save myself some money. I can't if it means I'm just going to resent her every day for the rest of my life. So now we'll see what the counselors say about my ability to cope. Deep down, I hope I'll be able to. Because the bottom line is, I do want to keep my family together if that's possible. She swears there was nothing she recalls of a physical nature. She tells me she recalls being pulled into the bathroom. And things began. She admits she was flirty with him. She admits there were signs, and she realizes she should have stayed away from him. She recalls never feeling concerned because it was her friend's husband. So she never thought anything would escalate. Then boom, she's in the bathroom making out with the guy, on her way to going the distance. It doesn't add up to me, and frankly it's pissing me off that she won't tell me anything. I realize there had to be something steaming up throughout the night to get them to that point, but I'm not getting the answers. Neither is the OMW. There was a kiss before the bathroom incident. I thought I shared that with you all but can't find it anywhere in my posts. She kept it from me that night and did not avoid the other man after that. She did tell me about it, said, sorry I never shared that. I have spent a lot of time asking her why she didn't tell me about this kiss. Or fearing I'd be angry, why she didn't avoid the other man the rest of the night, especially since she wasn't as drunk as she was in the bathroom. This is actually more disappointing to me than what I saw in the bathroom because she had more capacity to do something about stopping it before it got where it did. But she didn't. It's a slap in my face to our marriage. I broach that subject with her often, and she knows she failed to act. She acknowledges she was flattered by the kiss, so yes. I believe there was a curiosity about more, especially as the night progressed, and the booze kept flowing. She cries about the fact she didn't act, and seems remorseful. But that one's a tougher pill to swallow. My wife did admit this with everything else on Saturday. The kiss occurred approximately 1 to 2 hours before the bathroom. So drunk, yes, but not as much, and in my opinion, not enough to be able to tell this guy to back off or to easily just avoid him the rest of the night. I think you would all agree this is a huge smack in my face. A kiss is kind of an intimate gesture. And when it's with someone other than your spouse, something probably needs to be done about it. Sarcasm. If my wife wanted to avoid a fight with me, she could have just avoided this guy after that. But she kept flirting and hanging around this clown. I actually took her in the bathroom tonight and made her recap the events of the bathroom. She knew a few details, but I can tell wasn't fully aware of everything. In fact, she thought she was standing in a different place than where she was actually standing when I opened the door on them. So that tells me she was drunk out of her mind. After doing that, I realized I was more pissed that she could have stopped all this before it got to the bathroom earlier had she avoided this guy. She said the earlier kiss was unwanted, but even if it was, she obviously enjoyed it and admitted to being flattered by it. She says she wasn't looking to go any further with him, but that doesn't explain why she kept hanging out with him away from the rest of us. Anyway, another reason I don't know if I could forgive. Okay, so my wife just came in, looked me dead in the eyes while crying and told me that if I give her another chance, she will be a changed woman and will do anything in this world I ask for. She said she has been petrified over the last 4 days that I would leave her and is sickened by her behavior and for putting me through this pain. She feels like the isolation over the last 4 days has given her a glimpse of life without me. And it scares her. She said she wants to be there to help me through this and will go to any counseling I ask. She's nearly finished reading Not Just Friends and asked if there were any other books I wanted her to read. I mean, she's saying all the right things and showing tons of remorse. But even so, the thoughts are still fresh in my head. And the thoughtlessness of her actions just eats at me, looking forward to what the counselor has to say. I am convinced I got the whole truth that before Friday night, there was no relationship developing between the OM and my wife. As for the circumstances of the night, I still feel like my wife is keeping things from between the time of that first kiss to when I caught them, mainly because she wants to spare me any more hurt. I've said the things you suggest, like, I need you to tell me every little detail now, because if I decide to forgive you, then find out a new detail, that will be like you cheated a second time. And it will absolutely be over. Here's what I don't get about that rationale. If they were planning it out throughout the night, why would the plan take them to a hallway bathroom where 3 kids and 6 other adults were constantly in and out of throughout the night using? My daughter's room is right across the hall, and my master bedroom is 5 feet past that. In addition, my master bedroom door was closed all night to keep people out. If there was such a plan, why not go into my master bedroom, lock the door, and get busy, especially when no one would have a second thought about that door being closed? Why not use a bed instead of a bathroom with a nasty cat litter box with no top on it? In it, oh, by the way, the other man's boxers were in the cat litter box, right on top of a pile of crap when I walked in on them. So that doesn't sound more like drunk spontaneous behavior, rather than working up some master plan throughout the night? Finally had my first counseling session today. I think I got lucky. I was very happy with the counselor. She perfectly described the roller coaster of emotions I was going through and said a lot of things I've seen on the forum. I asked her if in her experience, does my story sound like one where there could be reconciliation? She said yes. I'll be honest and say that I was happy to hear that. She wants to see both my wife and I next, this Monday. I still have some things to work through in my head before deciding what to ultimately do, but the counseling was a very good start. Also, believe it or not, the OMW actually reached out to my wife to tell her she misses her and wants to talk to her. I told the OMW she had a heart of gold. I also told my wife that if they reconcile, she still cannot see the other man ever. That means the OMW can come visit at my house. And that's it. My wife fully complied and said she would cut off the OMW completely if that's what I wanted. I also told the OMW there's no way I want anything to do with the other man, and she fully understands, not even sure yet if the OMW will forgive her husband. Anyway, I'd be interested in some thoughts on this. The OMW and I have worked well together this week to determine that this was a one-night fling. We both found no evidence that my wife or the other man had been developing a relationship behind my back. I'm okay around the OMW. I told her she's got a heart of gold if she can forgive my wife. I also told her that while she may be able to forgive my wife, I will not make any attempt to forgive her husband, the other man. Unlike my wife and the OMW, the other man and I were merely acquaintances, so I have no bond with him that would make me even want to see or speak with him again. My boundary for a reconciliation between the OMW and my wife has already been set. The OMW can only visit us. We will not ever go to her house, unless the other man is deployed or out of town for whatever reason. My wife fully respects my wishes in this. Oh, the drinking is done. My wife will not drink ever again, only if it is just her and I. This was her promise to me even before I demanded it. As for my wife, she told the OMW she doesn't want to see the other man ever again. The OMW said she understands because that is probably my wish. My wife clarified to her that while that is true, it is not the whole reason why. She told the OMW that even if I divorced her, and whether they reconciled their friendship or not, she still wants to never see the other man again. Also, I told my wife I reserve the right to tell her when she needs to end the relationship with the OMW. If I ever become uncomfortable with it, my wife fully agreed and reassured me that me and our marriage are her #1 priority. And she will immediately stop talking with the OMW if and when I ask her to. She's been very remorseful all week. She's done everything I've asked and more. She hasn't argued about a single request of mine. She's offered to do things even before I asked for it, like never drinking again, opening up her phone, FB, email, which was never closed off to me anyway, and counseling. She's read Not Just Friends and is getting ready to read How to Help Your Spouse Heal from Your Affair. She seems sickened by what she's done, and although she shares the blame for cheating, is sickened by the thought of the other man. I've done a lot of interrogating, investigating, and soul-searching this week, and truly feel this is the only time my wife has ever strayed in 12 years. While I shudder to think what would have happened had I not caught her when I did, I'm confident there was no Ia leading up to this event. She also respects that even if I forgive, it will still take me time to get over what she's done. She has promised to be understanding to that fact for however long that takes. Plus, she's been doing my laundry all week. A man can get used to that. My wife's deep remorse, I think, is speeding the healing process, but I'm cautious and I still get mind movies, especially first thing in the morning. And when I go run, while I believe my wife is in shock by what she's done, I still can't get over how she allowed herself to get to that evil place. I'm also upset that even if we get past this and our marriage strengthens, as I've read often happens following something like this, there will always be this hole in our relationship, and my trust in her will never be at 100% again. It seems weird to me that I would stay in a relationship where I know I'll never completely trust her again, but I guess I'll have to live with that decision. I know there's no way I'll be a doormat, and if she pulls this crap again, I'm out. My comment: what do you guys think about this reconciliation? Can this marriage be saved? Some think I post a lot of reconciliation story. The truth is, I don't care if it is a divorce story or a reconciliation story. I'm just trying to provide some real-life stories so you guys can learn to deal with these situations. Sub and bell and let's keep moving.